Hey, everybody. We're currently wrapping up day 2 of Completithon 2025, and we've got the next run ready to rock and roll. So, coming up next is Nerd Squared, and is going to be doing a platinum percent run of Finding Frankie. So, with that out of the way, the floor is yours.
Don't mind my friend right here. That's Noob. He's going to be our moral support for the run. Let's put him off to the side there. But hey, I'm N3rd. I run various flavors of action, horror, indie games. And tonight I'll be running Finding Frankie. It's a bit of an interesting combination of genres. Just kind of think of it like Poppy Playtime x Trepang 2. Because, Poppy Playtime, it's mascot horror. But it also has a lot of parkour seeming inspired movements. The closest comparison I can think of, like I just mentioned, is Trepang 2. There's very similar, like, fast sliding movement and things like that. As well, this is going to be a platinum percent run, which, as the name kind of implies, will be going for all 14 achievements available in the Steam version of the game. Typically with Steam games, you are not able to actually reset the achievements, but to demonstrate what that looks like, I am actually going to quit out of the game real quick. I'll be using a program called Steam Achievement Manager to do this. So there we go. You might have been able to hear in the background, maybe not. I just reset my achievements, so they're all completely wiped. And we can boot up into the game and actually start the run. This is kind of what we have to do every time we reset runs, at least after the first couple of minutes, because that's roughly when we get our first achievement. And also, one other quick thing to explain. I'm playing on version 1.0. You can probably see in the bottom right there, it might be a little hard to see. But that's a release patch of the game. It allows us to do one kind of sort of sequence break late in the game. You can also kind of see the Steam overlay on the stream. We can see the frame counter there in the top left. There will be some achievements down here in the bottom right where the version number is currently. That's just so you can see the frame rate the game's running at, and also so you can see the achievements pop up as the run goes on. It's not strictly necessary. I just like to have that in as a showcase as the run goes along, and also just for verification purposes. So we're going to get this little quick opening cutscene. Of course, we're going to skip it. This premise of this game is basically you get this like secret ticket hidden in these boxes of cereal, kind of a Willy Wonka type situation. We're gonna play a parkour game show, kind of like American Ninja Warrior, Wipeout, or something like that. And that's basically the premise of the game. So we'll get right into it. We'll skip this cutscene, and time starts when that loading symbol disappears right there. And go. Alright, so like I said, it's a parkour-based horror game. Obviously, like I said, lots of Trepang 2 inspired movement, and that slide I'm using right now is the main way that movement comes into play. Because the slide is very powerful. As you can see, it's very fast. And there's a couple of different movement tricks you can do with it. First off, you can chain the momentum from the slide with bunny hops, which are using an external tool called X mouse button control, I believe is what it's called, to accomplish that. And you can also slide jump into walls, or slide into walls, and then when you're pressed up against the wall, do a jump, and you'll gain a bit of extra height from that. And now let us do some platforming skips throughout the run. This is also following inbound rules. There are some outbound skips you can do in this run, but they're not very marathon safe, so I'm not going to do them. Also, that guy just died to Frankie right off the starting gun. That's in chat for that guy. And I died to Frankie, okay. That's the thing that can happen sometimes. It's pretty rare, but it just happened there. Sometimes when you go into that tutorial area, Frankie can just like pop out of the ether and insta-gib you for whatever reason, but reloading lets us avoid that. So now we're in the tutorial area. This is kind of where you're taught how the parkour mechanics work. And this is actually one of the rare cases you see this area in speedruns, because this area is technically entirely optional. And of course, I'm failing a simple jump. This area is technically entirely optional. You never have to go here in a casual playthrough. But for our cases, we do, because you get an achievement right there for completing it. So we'll go ahead and complete that. There's a few quick fire ones we're going to get in the lobby. We're going to boot Frankie's nose there. I'll get an achievement for actually entering the lobby. And we'll grab our first Frankie doll as well, which will give us another achievement. There's 10 Frankie dolls left to grab throughout the game, as this game's kind of extra collectible. That'll give us 2 achievements. We'll get one there for collecting our first one, and then we'll get another one later once we've actually grabbed all 10. We have our first true obstacle course right here, but we're gonna skip quite a lot of it with some wall jumps, as I guess I'll call them. And I'll do a jump off the trampoline there, skip the second half. And right here, we'll see something you saw in the lobby a second ago, which are these breaker puzzles. This is kind of our main puzzle mechanic in the game. You just have to kind of search certain rooms to find these breakers and activate them all. And that'll open up doors to let you progress further in the game. I should also explain as well, I'm running with 120 FPS, as you can see. FPS doesn't actually affect anything in the game. I just more or less run with that for convenience. It just makes the game look nicer, because it's a very high motion game, obviously. So if you run... Obviously, it's personal preference, but for me, at 60 FPS, the game starts to look a little blurry and not very pleasant to look at, so basically run a high frame rate for aesthetics. It's not really needed. And yeah, the movement, as you might imagine with the slide jumps, is very difficult. As you can see, I got pushed back there. You'd have to time them kind of precisely, much more so in these vents that I just went through. And you also have to space it out pretty precisely, because if you space a slide, or do a slide and then a jump too close to each other, instead of doing the slide jump like you're meant to, you'll end up just slide jumping in place and not actually go anywhere. As you can see, I'm doing a bunch of slide jumps all over the place. It's our main movement tech, and as you can see, it's very powerful because it lets us go very quickly across gaps and rooms. And spacing your slide jumps pretty particularly, like I just explained in a way, is kind of what differentiates, you know, high level runs from people who are just learning the game. Because as you might imagine, it's kind of difficult to get the hang of. We just got our next achievement right there for completing a chase with Frankie. I had to do a bit of a pause buffer right there just to let the achievement pop. Another breaker puzzle right here. Right now, after falling down that shaft or slide after completing the Frankie chase, we're going to do another obstacle course, or at least some of the obstacle course, to meet up with a character named Deputy Duck. Well, not really a character, but a character that becomes a tool we'll be using later in the game. And to get to him, we have to do another obstacle course, but as you can probably guess, we're going to skip most of it with some slick parkour. I'm going to do a couple of slide jumps right there to get on top of that wall. Okay, unfortunately, I hit these red squares, which are very aptly labeled out of bounds, which triggers Frankie to come out and try to kill us here. So we have to wait until he goes back into his little jack-in-the-box setup right there. And then we'll just retry the jump. There we go. Got a second try. Unfortunately, I had to wait for Frankie, but that's fine. It's not a huge time waste in the grand scheme. And that cylinder can be kind of tricky to jump over with slide jumps, but like they're shallow enough that you can jump over them pretty easily if you do get caught. So difficulties with the out of bounds squares aside, because yes, that's what was actually on the squares out there. We finally meet Deputy Duck. Honestly, pretty good cutscene. Nothing much happens. He just kind of looks around acting all goofy. He even gets a lazy eye for a brief moment there. And that part is really cute too. He just quacks as he hits the floor. Really nice touch. He's apparently pretty angry about us picking him up though, so he's just going to angrily peck at us. And the screen actually gets kind of red in the process, as you'll see here. It's okay though, we've subdued him. So we use Deputy Duck, radar function on Deputy Duck. There's a radar function and some other thing. I forget what other tools he has. We use the radar function to open that door, and that's it. we don't use Deputy Duck for the rest of the game, at least in a speedrun context, because that's the last point where he's strictly needed. But there's a fun glitch we can do with him at the end of this air event. Didn't quite get it. What I was trying to do there is pull up Deputy Duck going into that cutscene where I fall down the vent. And what would have happened if I got it is the UI on Deputy Duck's screen would have been stuck on the screen until we get to this next cutscene coming up with a certain other character we'll meet in a sec. And it doesn't actually save any time or anything, it's just a really, really funny visual effect. So this is Henry Hotline, say hi to Henry. There's a fun cutscene we sing with him later. But before we get to that, we have a quick sort of stealth section involving him. If you've ever played something like Slender the 8 Pages or something similar, it's kind of like that. We have to hit these 6 phones, and what you're kind of intended to do here is use the radar function on Deputy Duck in order to find where these phones are and figure out a safe route to grab the phones while not getting insta-gibbed by Henry Hotline. But I already know where the phones are beforehand, so I just have a pretty planned route and pick them all one by one. We're gonna have a quick chase with Henry. And while we do this chase, I just want you all to listen to the music, because the game, well, this section in particular, but also just the whole game, has an absolutely banging soundtrack. Shouts to the Super Lou Games dev team for putting the soundtrack together. And the movement too just has some really cool movement tricks with it. Because right here we're gonna slide down these stairs and then just zoom down that hallway with the slide jump. Probably the flashiest movement in the entire game, or one of the flashiest bits of movement in the game. And we're technically done with the chase already, but I have to take a quick detour there to get a Frankie doll. And we're out of the chase, which will give us another achievement. And now we're in Frankie's Crash Course, again going with game show comparisons. This is essentially this game's version of Hole in the Wall. We're going to have a bunch of Frankie-themed props coming at us, as you can see. And the intent behind this mini-game is you're supposed to dodge and weave back and forth to avoid the props. But there's actually a bit of a god spot I'm standing in right here. If you stay in the leftmost 2 columns of the arena, the props in those 2 columns come in a pretty consistent pattern. So you can kind of just dodge and weave left and right like I'm doing right now and avoid them pretty easily. Makes this minigame a lot less stressful, because it definitely caused me quite a few issues when I was first running the game. Just go ahead and dodge and weave until the minigame's over. And it's also an auto score too. You can see the timer there in the back. It goes for about a minute, and we have a few seconds left. Okay, perfect. So right when the timer's about to hit 0, we can just go ahead and slide jump down. This will send us into the utilidors, as it's said just there. This is kind of the backlot area of Frankie's Parkour Palace, is where we actually are in the setting in the game. And we'll be taking these stairs down because we need to explore the utilidors a bit to get to where we're trying to go next, which, as you might guess, with this is going to be some more parkour-themed areas. We're also going to make a quick trip through the incinerator room. Keep that room in mind for later, because we'll be making a return trip there later in the run. And when I'm going up these stairs, I'm going to slide, because it's a little faster than just running up them. The running in this game is very slow compared to just a normal slide, as you can see. So we made our way to the top, and around the corner here, we'll see a very familiar face. You might remember him from his brief appearance in the intro. There's Frankie. Actually, the good Frankie, not clickbait. He's gonna talk to us here, basically telling us where we're gonna go next. But this is a bit of a lengthy cutscene, it's around 50 seconds of waiting while we wait for him to yap here. So if there's any updates or any messages, go right ahead.
What a surprise! Don't worry your mask-covered head.
Absolutely. I would like to remind everybody that for Resident Evil 4, which is the last run of day 2, it's going to come up a lot sooner than you might think. We have both a bid war for the beginning of the run, where you get to choose the costume that the runner will be wearing for the whole run. So I just want to kind of catch everybody up on where that bid war is standing. We currently have $45 towards the Gangster Leon and Knight Ashley option, and unfortunately $0 towards the other two options, which are the classic outfits and the Raccoon Police Department. So if those two outfits are the way you like to play Resident Evil 4, perhaps you could collaborate with your friends and or family to perhaps sway the bid war in the favor of one of those two options. Remember, the barrier to entry here is currently at $45. And at the end of the run, we have a milestone incentive. So once the number on the bottom left corner of your screen, i.e. the total money raised for Completithon 2025 reaches $1,600, if that gets met by the end of the Resident Evil 4 run, we'll get to see a bonus Mercenaries run. It's roughly an extra 7 minutes. And chat will get to choose both the level and the costume for that bonus run. So if you check out our Tiltify page, which is in the pinned message, you can, if you wish to make a donation, you can count it simultaneously towards one of the bid war options, and it will directly go towards the $1,600 milestone incentive.
Yeah. All right, so now we're in another sort of stealth section mixed with a breaker puzzle, which are the main puzzles like I was talking about before. And like I said, it's a half stealth section, because as you can see, Frankie's chasing us, technically, but he's so slow, we can avoid him pretty easily. I'm going to do a checkpoint reload right there as soon as I activate that last breaker. That will put us on top of these stairs next to the sewers so that we don't have to walk in the water, because as you saw, walking in the water is very slow. And we're going to get to some interesting side content right here. Normally this is not required in any other category, but it is for this one because all achievements. We're going to get another cutscene here, this time with Henry Hotline. He looks a little beat up after the chase sequence we had with him earlier, but he's fine. I'm sure. I'm sure he's going to turn out fine. And this is actually required. I'm not just doing this for fun or anything like that, because fun fact, you actually get an achievement for watching this cutscene. And for reasons you're about to see, the name of the actual name of the achievement is "Please Leave a Message." And the actual cutscene itself, it's kind of weird seeing it out of context in a speedrun, but he's basically alluding to some lore behind the scenes. So, yeah. Oh, nice. There's a return of Deputy Duck. Well, looks like it's gonna get an important message. Who's it gonna be?
Hello?
Oh.
Hello, no one is available.
So there's the achievement. Yeah, he should have answered the call about his car's extended warranty or something. But yeah, that's the cutscene. Like you saw there, you get an actual achievement for watching that, and it's just like the dad joke you get for the achievement name is just the cherry on top of that too. Thank you, Superloop, for putting that in. Anyways, speaking of areas we don't typically go to in most other categories, we're going to the water park. Because the premise of this back half of the game is you have to go to 2 more parkour park-themed areas, the water park included. But for reasons I'll explain later, we're actually just going to get that Frankie doll that's in there and immediately leave. Yeah, that's all we needed right there, is that Frankie doll. Don't technically have to complete it again for reasons I'll explain later. We go into the other area we would have to go to in this back half, which is the trampoline park. Rank it all right there in the vending machine. I'll be doing some mini games. There's 2 mini games we have to do here. This first one is a pretty simple jump through the hoops, which is kind of annoying given the fact that you can jump these trampolines on accident, but it's pretty manageable. Now I'll be catching some noob noobs. The way that you catch a noob noob is you touch it, and they just explode. Don't worry about it, it's fine. It's not blood or anything like that, it's just like raspberry jam, probably. So that's how this minigame was gonna go. We'll do the hoop game and then the pop the noob noobs game. I think leaves around 3 or 4 rounds of each, something like that. And as you go in the rounds, you get less and less time to complete the minigame, but obviously we're on top of things, so we're gonna complete these minigames pretty fast. And what's kind of annoying about the rings is that sometimes when you jump through them, they just don't activate if you jump through them too early or if you don't touch them hard enough. And also the noob noobs, while their spawns are completely set, you can see the boxes dropping into the arena here. Where they move is a little random, so you kind of have to react to where they go. That one decided to be a Stragorn and go into the corner. I believe this is the last noob tube round as well, so as soon as we pop this last one, yep, there we go. And now this key is going to slowly descend. I'm going to try to grab it early with a well-timed slide jump. I didn't quite get it like I'd hoped, but that's fine. And I did a checkpoint reload right there. That just puts me right next to the elevator. Technically a waste time RTA, but I'm just going with my muscle memory. Anyways, you remember that incinerator room I was at like 8 minutes ago or something like that? We're going to head our way back there now. Because in order to go through the door that leads to the final area of the game, we have to do this breaker puzzle in the incinerator room. So go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to do some jumps between the pipes to avoid some rail grinding. And also grab that Frankie doll right there that's in behind that barrel. Like the 8th one, I think. Do a quick jump right there, skip the loop. That's the last breaker. Technically, you could do another jump right here to skip right to the other side of the incinerator after hitting that last breaker, but in the times I tried that, I accidentally fell in the incinerator and died. So I'm not going to do that and just take that last rail as normal. So now we've activated all those breakers. We're going to make our way over to the door of the final area, which is Frankie's Frosted Peak. And when I open this door, you'll see 2 keys required. I only put in 1. That sequence break I was alluding to earlier is what I just did right there. For whatever reason on the release version of the game, you only have to put 1 of the 2 keys from those areas I went to before into that door for it to open on the release version. And going to the water park is slow, so we have to do the trampoline park instead. Which is quite a bit faster, because the puzzle in the water park is very slow and time consuming. So the Frosted Peak is pretty much the final boss of parkour movement in this game. There's lots of platforming skips, including that one I just did to get over that rotating bar. So grab another doll right there. And I'm going to do a small slide jump right here. That one technically doesn't save any time, it just makes this part a little safer. Because that can happen. Normally when you go on this last course, the Frosted Peak, what's supposed to happen is there's some purple goop that gradually rises as you go through the course. But by doing that slide jump over the wall, I skipped the trigger that causes that goo to spawn. So we can just go through this course without having to worry about getting knocked off by these sucker punch arms that jut out of the wall. You don't have to deal with that cylinder at all, because you can just slide under those. I'm going to try to do a movement shortcut here. It's not too big of a time saver, it just looks kind of cool. So I'll jump off that trampoline, slide onto that lamp so I can end up on the fence right here. Get up onto these rotating platforms a little early. Just so I can avoid taking a trampoline at the end of the platform there. So we're at the top of Frosted Peak, but we have one more mini game to do. before we can actually do our final boss, which you'll see what that is in a second. We just have to go across this rotating cylinder, much like other ones we've had to deal with. But it's a bit more difficult if you mess up, because as you saw there's some saw blades on the side. So if you mess up at all, you're pretty much immediately dead. But we were able to deal with that first try, which is a relief, because that can be a big gatekeeper with runs. So it's just good to get past that and get it out of our system. So I'm going to drop into the arena right here, which looks awfully similar to a certain stage from Fall Guys. And I checkpoint reload right there after falling through this very obvious hole in the floor, just to avoid a cutscene where evil Frankie from the beginning of the game dive bombs into the arena. And this is pretty much exactly the same as the hexagon stage from Fall Guys, as you might be able to very easily suss out. But there's some cheese I'm going to try to do right here to make it a bit easier. Unless Frankie bombards me and kills me. Okay, sure. I could have sworn he was farther away than that. I don't know how he caught me. It's weird. That's fine. The checkpoint just puts us right there, right in front of the part where we drop in from out of bounds, so we don't lose that much progress. I did give myself a bit of a tight estimate, but I did account for stuff like that happening, so we should be fine. There we go. So I had to fall down while crouched at an angle right there in order to land next to this pipe, stuffed with a bunch of noobs. While we're in this spot, it's kind of like the god spot from Frankie's Crash Course earlier, where we can just safely complete the minigame without having to worry about Frankie catching us. Because as the timer says right there, it's normally a survival type game where you have to stay or avoid falling to the bottom as long as you can. Also, Frankie's going to get a quick word in here. Thanks, Frankie, for keeping it PG-13. And like I said earlier, the soundtrack in this game just absolutely slaps. So you can hear the bass going on with this song as it ramps up the longer we're in here. And also, while we're waiting here in this safe spot, I like to just observe Frankie and see what he does during this, because obviously since we're in a spot he can't get into, he gets a little confused, and so he just tries his best, or his pathing tries its best to find a way to get to us, which it can't. So some interesting things happen as he tries to hop around the arena. And obviously, since it's like the hexagon game from Fall Guys, the more you hop around, or the more squares disappear. So if we're lucky, he can end up falling into the pit below the arena and just be in hexagon jail, or hexahavoc jail, I guess. I have to survive for 20 more seconds. And typically most other categories, that's where the run would end, and we do have a cutscene after this. But since we're doing all achievements, there's a little bit of post-game stuff that we have to do once all this is done. The timer's up, we'll hit the lever. And we'll get a quick cutscene here showing Frankie, evil Frankie, getting dunked on with some noobs. They're very gleeful, falling from the heavens there. And this first part of the cutscene is unskippable. So while we're here, and before we get to the post-game stuff, I do want to give some quick shout-outs. Obviously, shout-outs to Super Lou Games. They're the developers of this game. You made a banger of a mascot horror, and which I appreciate very much, because as you might know from my GDQ runs and various other communities, I'm a big mascot horror person, so it's just good to run a game from that genre for many marathons, including 3 mainline GDQs somehow. Thank you, GDQ, for letting me do that. Just get an achievement for being in the game technically, but of course you have some post-game stuff. Also shouts to Xside, who's the current world record holder for the Any% inbounds run, and OZ for being one of the top runners of the 100% inbounds, which is basically like Any%, but getting all the Frankie dolls. And speaking of, we'll get all the last Frankie doll right there. And also just to Completithon for letting me do this run. I know this year has been pretty hard on a lot of us, mentally or otherwise, so events like this and the GDQ events in particular, like I mentioned before, It's a very grounding experience, you know, just being engrossed in a community like that. So, thank you for letting me do this. Also, that's a weird audio bug I just noticed. Sometimes the dialogue or the sound from the cutscene we skipped earlier ends up playing here after we skip it for whatever reason. Speaking of which, this next cutscene is unskippable, but once it transitions over to here, boom, we are able to skip it. And we can skip it before the prompt appears, so it might have looked like a bit of a jarring transition there, but yeah. So now we'll be reloading our save. This will put us right before Frosted Peak. Now, why in the heck are we back at Frosted Peak? Well, there's one final achievement we have to grab for this run. And the process to get it is pretty involved. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if people had trouble finding this in their first playthrough. I definitely had to use a guide to find it. Because essentially we'll be going to a secret area near the lobby where we started the game. But to get to that secret area, we need a key. And that key is in a place that's pretty well hidden. It's in this big staircase that's behind that crime scene tape. Which is a place that you wouldn't think to look in most cases. But obviously we know where it is. So we're going to go up this very long staircase to get to the top. Because this staircase, this office will come up to at the top is where that key is going to be. Of course, we'll be trying to do some slides to save some time. It's a little tricky because sometimes you can get stuck on the railing, but I didn't have too much trouble there. And when I grabbed that key, I went ahead to checkpoint reload. That'll keep the key in our inventory and it'll put us back at Frosted Peak, or at the entrance to Frosted Peak, I should say. Because that'll let us avoid having to do some backtracking once we grab the key. We do have to do a little bit of backtracking though to get back to the lobby, so we'll make our return to the utilidors. The same shortcut that we took a bit earlier in the run, because we want to go back to that section where we took a bunch of elevators to get to like the water park and the trampoline park and things like that. Because there's an elevator we can take to get back to Deputy Duck's course, and that's what we'll use to take a shortcut to where the secret Easter egg is to end off the run. It's right over here. Just gotta take a left, and it should be on our right in a second. There it is. So we'll take this shortcut. Now let's get back to the Deputy Duck area. Ooh, got caught on that sign, but that's okay. Our secret door is right there. We just opened it with a key. I'll take our very slow elevator ride up to victory. Time is going to be in a little bit, maybe 15-20 seconds, when the last achievement pops in the bottom right. All right, just over here and time. Gold spell on that last split, very nice. I had a timer running on my end, which was 29:18 IGT. I imagine it was probably around a 30 real time if I had to guess, which is pretty dang solid. But yeah, I already did my shoutouts during the ending credits before we had to do all this super secret Easter egg gobbledygook. But just to confirm that I do actually have all the achievements, I do. That is a legit run. Just wanted to make sure about that. But yeah, like I was saying before I went off on that brief tangent, that's pretty much all I had in mind. Thank you for having me, and watch the rest. Be sure to go the rest of Completithon.
All right, that was a really cool run to watch. um, Day two is almost over. It's kind of wild to think that today went by so quickly. We've got two more runs to close things out. We've got What the Car coming up really, really quick. Looks like they're still doing a little bit of setup for that. And of course, our final run is Resident Evil 4. And then we all get to go to bed and get ready for day three. Just wanted to kind of remind everybody that this time around, Completithon is raising money for Girls Make Games. Our total is currently $1,390, which is amazing. Girls Make Games believes in providing every girl and woman with the opportunity to discover their potential and talents through game development. So these donations are all going towards contributing directly to the Girls Make Games Scholarship Fund, which allows girls and women to pursue careers in gaming through programs like college scholarships, summer camps, mentorships, and internships. So, for those of you who have graciously donated so far, be assured that your money is going towards an amazing cause. And once again, thank you so much for donating, and thank you to everybody at home who has been watching so far. All right. My time as the host has unfortunately come to an end. This is my one and only hosting shift for Completethon this time around. So I must bid you all adieu. But I will be handing the hosting torch over into the capable hands of Tabby, who will be hosting for, I believe, the next run. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in Twitch chat later this week.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. You did awesome hosting. I got it from here. As it was said, I'm Tabby, or Tabby Ecstasy. And guess what, guys? I get to come back. You saw me earlier today. I got to come back. They loved me so much, they brought me back. But I'm so excited for the next run that I get to be here for of What the Car. I'm so excited. You guys are not prepared for the silliness of this run. Oh, hi.